Let's continue with the developments on our leading story, where the Eastern Cape, KZN and the Free State have been affected by heavy snowfall. Now, this has also brought cold weather conditions in other parts of the country, including Gauteng as well as Mpumalanga. Joining us to make sense of this weather phenomenon is climatologist Simon Gear. Simon, good to have you on the program. Despite the inclement weather, can you explain the factors that contribute to this current inclement weather, especially in parts of the country, particularly the Eastern Cape as well as KZN?
Yeah, good afternoon. It's been quite an experience, I think, for a lot of South Africans, particularly in the central and eastern parts of the country. A very cold, grey and windy day, certainly over Johannesburg, where I've been. But down in KZN, like heavy rainfall, heavy snowfall, in fact, and parts of the road network being closed off. Yeah, so what's happened is that the cold front's come through. There's been a strong southern influx of very, very cold air in over a fairly moist area of air, and therefore we've had heavy snowfall over the eastern highlands of South Africa.
So we heard from the Minister of Defence a short while ago, who also described that such weather conditions are somewhat unfamiliar to South Africans. How do you see the climate change influencing weather patterns in the country? Are we even likely to experience more extreme weather events like the current one?
This is not a climate change signal at all. This is fairly typical of South Africa in early September. We have these sort of weekends, I would say, once every 2 to 3 years. So this is not a climate change thing at all. It's just one of those things where sometimes you book a wedding or an air show at this time of year and you just get really, really unlucky.
Yeah. But maybe let's speak to that. What differences in weather impacts can we expect across regions just like the Western Cape, KZN, and Gauteng as well, compared to the Eastern Cape during this weather system that we're seeing?
So in this particular weather system, I mean, obviously there's snowfalls over the Eastern Cape. The Western Cape is behind the system now, and so they should be clearing up. They had very, very wet weather, beforehand. But this is something that moves past from west to east. So it's something that we should all be fairly familiar with.
So with the warnings that we're getting in place, what advice, for instance, would you give to motorists and residents in affected areas to really ensure their safety during these kind of conditions?
I mean, I suppose believe the weather service, So a lot of people went up Van Riene's Pass thinking that they'd be okay without actually reading the weather reports saying that there was a warning for heavy snowfall. So I would say give it a couple of days and then get on with your lives. This thing will pass. But mostly when the weather service issues a warning, believe them.
But how well do you think South Africa is prepared for such weather events? And what improvements could be made in terms of infrastructure or even emergency responses to such weather?
You know what? I think we're fine. We have this this narrow bottleneck in the Durban-Joburg route that occasionally gets hit by snow, but it is literally once every 3 years. It's not something that needs an infrastructure fix. So I don't think that there's an infrastructure failure here at all.
But are there any, call it long-term trends in weather patterns that we are seeing in South Africa or should be aware of? And how might these trends affect, for instance, agriculture, water supply as well has come under topical areas, and the overall climate resilience in this country?
I mean, that's a much bigger question. So overall, we're getting hotter every single season. So that's a real problem. We're seeing that our rainfall gets more variable every single season. So all of those climate change issues are very, very much there. This particular event obviously not related to that at all. But certainly, if you're a farmer, and you're not paying attention to climate change trends in your area, then I'm afraid you're really missing a trick, because you are in real trouble.
You speak about paying attention to the weather warnings that we might get as well, but how important is community engagement and even awareness in really mitigating the effects of this kind of inclement weather?
Well, I mean, communities need to be aware. I mean, communities need to take responsibility. I'm not keen on the idea that, people should need to reach down to communities. I mean, all of the information is there. And so communities need to take responsibility for themselves to read up on the climate change impacts in their area. And all of that information is very, very available online. And so communities need to look at that and make decisions and start thinking about the way that they're going to mitigate those impacts.
A question of curiosity on my end. How reliable are current forecasting methods in really predicting such weather events? Are there any advancements on the horizon that could improve accuracy?
Well, I mean, South African Weather Service is world class. I mean, seriously, one of the best forecasting agencies in the world. So from a seasonal point of view, they are like literally, we could not ask for a better crowd. And then there's so much work done on Southern Africa. I mean, again, on a climate level, we've got UCT and we've got WITS, who both run world-class climate change teams that do this modeling. And there is so much stuff put out there that there's really no excuse for claiming as a farmer or as a community that you are not informed. You should know exactly what's coming in your area.
And Simon, as we wrap up, can we expect the weather to improve in the coming days, or is this going to last a couple of days more in parts of the country?
I mean, I hate to talk about weather improving or decreasing, or because I think all weather is just cool and interesting. But it will be slightly warmer tomorrow. And then by Monday, Tuesday, temperatures, certainly for Johannesburg, back into the mid-20s as this cold front moves out. So, things will dry out a little bit. This is the coldest of the days that we're forecasting across the central and eastern parts of the country.
Simon Gear, thank you so much for your valuable insights into the current weather conditions which are affecting parts of the country. We've learned about the inclement weather in the Eastern Cape as well as KZN, but also Gauteng catching a cold as well.